Hi guys, welcome back to part 2 of our little look at my Honda 550 carbs. This is actually 2 months on from part 1 because a lot of things happened and then I had to go away for a while and blah 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 blah. So I left you where I'd found a broken drain screw on the float bowl, which I thought was going to be the end of the issues, and I realised that I hadn't found everything, and I certainly haven't brought you up to date with everything. So I'll start off by showing you what I found, and then I will try and remember how these things came apart, because as I say, my memory's not great anymore and it has been 2 months, but we'll have to stick them together somehow. So let's go and have a look. It's on the bench as usual. Right, there's your bus drain screw that we saw. I've ordered 2, so I could put one on the outside of each side of the bike. The middle 2 I'll just use the old ones. And then the seats where the needle valve sits, there was a lot of corrosion around them, as you can see, which is probably contributing to the problem of flooding from time to time, because nothing was seating properly. And then the pivots for the floats were all manky, causing a bit of binding, and one of the 4 was a completely different material, so it had been changed at some time. And then these little springs are meant to be underneath the mixture screw, and 2 of them are missing. So 2 had springs, 2 didn't, which again is rather unusual. And in the mixture screw settings, let's see if we can find a screw. The mixture screw settings, the middle 2 were about 3/4 out. The one on the extreme left was almost completely shut, and the one on the extreme right was about 1 out. So they were also way out kilter. I don't know why. It's all a bit peculiar because the float poles and things looked quite clean, yet the rest of it really wasn't, and had obviously been messed with. So I can only assume someone's dropped the bowls off, cleaned them out, and just bunged it back in an attempt to clean the carbs. And then as for the rest of it, who knows? I've really got no idea. So I've got some aftermarket rebuild kits, which comes with the main tube, which we'll come to in a minute, a new needle, an emulsion screw and an adjustment screw, a seat for the float needle, and then for some reason 2 jets that sit at the bottom of the central tube. I'm not quite sure why there's 2. And then an assortment of rubber rings, all of which, a new needle of course for the float. All the rubber in the carbs are completely destroyed. They're just rock solid. So I've got to decide really what I'm going to do, and I think, having taken a very close look at the needle, and I have looked very closely at it, there's no ridging, no pock marking, nothing. It's in excellent condition. I know the tubes that I left in the carbs are all clean, so I'm going to stick with them, because I'm not sure I trust the aftermarket parts, and I'll show you why. The mixture screw isn't quite identical to the one that came out, and then the little emulsion screw is rather different, as you can see. Let me try and drop it down a little bit. Yeah, as hopefully you can see. Now, it might be of no importance. The critical parts may be the same, but it looks to my naked eye that the drillings in this one are there's more of them. This is the original one. There's more of them and they're bigger. And the same goes for the bit that sits on the end of the original tube. It takes a little rubber seal. I'm not convinced they're exactly the same either. So I think I will stick with as much of the original brass work as I can. I can't use the float needle seats because they are pretty worn and cruddy. But the rest of it's cleaned up pretty well. So I think I will be sticking with the original Honda brassware. And just fitting new seals and rubbers. I think that's the most sensible. Okay, so I grabbed the first carb and immediately ran into problems. The float bowls are grooved and in a distinctive shape. The new gaskets, in inverted commas, which come in the kit are just round O-rings, and I'm sure you will have tried this yourself at some point in your life. Trying to get a round O-ring into a shaped section is difficult. The originals come, well, they appear to be semi-round and shaped, so they just drop in. They're a bit battered, the originals, which is why I'm not using them. So I had to persevere, and I came up with this. All a bit Heath Robinson, I'm afraid, but that's what I had to hand. So the seal groove, I put a small amount of sealant, gasket sealant in it, and then I've left it underweight on the corners particularly, and thankfully that has worked. It took a bit of time cleaning all the extruded sealant off them again, but a bit of panel wipe sorted that out. So a slight irritation, and I thought, you idiot, basically. I thought, why didn't you just go and buy some pre-shaped ones? They are on eBay, but no one in the UK. There's some from China, some from Taiwan, and a few in America, but nothing available in the UK. So I couldn't have done anything about it anyway. So we might as well start at the top, I think, and put our slide in, which conveniently has a cutout, and in there, which we cannot see at the minute because all the shadows from the lights, there will be a groove, which I can't see, but anyway, it's got to go that way. Here we go. And then we need our through post, and of course our little felt washer. Now that's got to go on the inside of the carb, the rest of it goes on the outside. The felt washer, I think, is worth giving a little bit of oil to, just an oily finger's worth. Call me old-fashioned, but felt seals are normally oiled. And then maybe I should put the felt seal over this. In fact, I will. because I suspect it's going to be easier. There is actually a small lip on that plastic. Right. Plastic on, don't know if you can see that. That's us. So now we've got to attach our little screw. Just get a socket for that. And then we need to bend up our lock tab. That won't go anywhere. So that's it for up top. Apart from our gasket, we have a new one of those. And our top. I've cleaned all the gasket surfaces, so they should be okay. That doesn't look a great fit, that gasket. But anyway, we should give it a go. Still good. Right, the underside. Our little jet with the emulsion tube on it. I'll just put a little bit of oil on that thread, because sometimes I think when they've been in the ultrasonic cleaner, the threads can be a little dry. I mean, I might be imagining it, I don't know, but that's what I think anyway. And then we need our little jet that goes in there. Which needs an O-ring. Bit fiddly, but there we go. I think that could benefit from a little bit of lubrication as it tries to go in as well. Yeah, that's down. Very good. And in our float seat, which also has a little rubber seal, which goes in there. Doesn't want to go in there though. Let's check the oh, for God's sake. Let me just get my calipers. 8.04. 8. So these are fatter. Oh. Let's try that again. 8.05. Right, try. Oh, there we go. I thought I was going to have trouble there with that not going in, but I thought for one horrible minute it was the wrong size. But I needn't have panicked. And we need a float. Our needle, new needle. And our float pin. It's now, so let's get the float needle in. That can go over there. It can go through there. And then it has a little locking plate for the, which I should have put in first. Take this back out. Little locking plate for the seat. Right, and our needle. Then our float. There we go. Right. Suppose I should do the float height now, shouldn't I? Let me just have a look in the manual, which isn't here, it's elsewhere. I'll try and find out what the float height is. In fact, before I go, I might as well do some other small bits. So we've got the fuel pipe connector, which is discoloured and pitted in fact, but it's still usable. And there are 4 O-rings for that. And that just pushes into the side of the carb. I can't remember the angle of that for the minute, but I'll check. And we have the air connector, which I was going to change, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. The rubber work seems quite good. It must have been changed at some point. And then a mixture screw with a spring. Might need a smaller screwdriver. No. Right. That's it buttoned. 1. And I'll put them all at 1, I think, and start from there. And in a bowl. And our drain plugs, new drain plugs came in brass, complete with little O-rings. Again, I'll just give that a little lubrication on the threads. Lovely. What else? We've got our throttle linkage connector, which is a spring and a little peg. Which has to be hooked around a ball in there. Like that. And then we have 2 connectors to hold all that together. That'll hold it in place though. Right. So that just leaves that, which is going to go on there. Well, better do the float height first. Right, so float height carb bowl, and then the next bit is the linkage, but that needs to be done when I fit the pair onto the bracket. So let's go and find out what the float height should be. Right, I've cut myself a handy little card template, and that's just touching. I'd say that's pretty much bang on. Yep, that'll do. So we need to fit this, which goes over a groove, there like that. Strangely loose these, but as I said in the first video, I assume that this pressing down on it is enough to keep it in place. It can't fall off, but just some of them are not as secure as I would have imagined. Oh, in fact it does quite strongly. In fact, there you go, I needn't have worried. The tension is actually quite strong. Well, let's see if we can get these started. Right, press them all down. And tight. Right, I will build up the other three, and then we shall come back and have a look at fitting them into the frame. Just out of interest, one carb 2 and its float height is miles off. Absolutely miles off. So there's a metal tang which I've got to bend to drop it, so I'll do that now. It's not a lot for you to see, to be honest. Basically the tang's there, I've just got to move it about slightly in order to drop the floats. Right, that's got it, I think. Very slight drop on this side. It was actually, yep, that's actually quite fiddly. A tiny amount of movement gave you quite a lot of drop. I've now got two connected pairs. I've made sure the choke levers connect up between them. Ready to go into the mounting frame. Oh, just for I go there, because I'd used silicone gasket on these, I left them overnight and then took them all off again just to make sure that nothing had squeezed into the float bowls themselves, because obviously that would not be a good thing. Luckily everything was bang on, not a problem. And then the other thing I've done, which I shouldn't have done, is I've fitted these because I rightly thought I'd be able to get the balls in at the top, or I thought I would, but of course I forgot that they had these little plastic straps on which goes onto the bottom ball. Why, I don't know, but they do. So I'm going to have to take these off again and then we'll attach them. So I'll bring you back when I've done that. We'll start with the left hand pair. Okay, I gave up trying to film that bit because it's such a fiddle with these little rubbers. So I took the carbs back off. I fitted the mounting screws very loosely so they'll move about. To give me room to fit them, I had to take the rubbers off the top, fit these with the rubbers on the bottom, then refit the rubbers on top. So really just a lot of faffing about. But anyway, they're on. So now I've got to get each of these onto those balls, which again doesn't look to be very simple. Oh no, there we go. It wasn't that bad. Well, that one wasn't, and nor was that one. Right, okay. Good. Better than I thought. So then we need to screw down the back two with their little T's, and then a spring and a T, wherever it's gone. A spring and a T in each of those. And then they have caps. Right, so I shall do that. Do the same on the other side, not forgetting to put my little pin in between the two banks of two to hold the carburetor return spring. So again, it's very hard to film this because you're jiggling about in front of the camera. But you've seen what I've done. I'll do the same on this side, tighten everything up and fit the spring. Okay, they're together. That was more of a struggle than I anticipated, to be honest. And I was right, I wouldn't have been able to film it because I was constantly having to move things around and my hands would have been in the way all the time. So I'll just quickly run through what the issues were. First of all, I found it's easier to put the petrol pipes in place and then feed them through the frame. The first pair of carbs go on dead easy, but you need to leave the mounting screws loose because the return spring in the middle sits on a little pin, and without leaving these carbs loose it's almost impossible to get the second set in place, and even then it's tight because you've got to manoeuvre in the vac pipe thing, the fuel line T-piece, the fuel line for this set through the frame, and also that little pin. It was fiddly. And then the other thing is these operating arms with the little rubber straps, there isn't much clearance, so you have got to jiggle them about quite a lot to get them in, even with the carbs loose. And it's not, I don't want to make it sound like it's appalling because it wasn't, it's just a bit fiddly to get them all in while it's loose. And then the spring hooked over on there. But they're in, they're attached, everything works, chokes work, throttle lifts and drops properly. Petrol pipes are okay. I was expecting to replace them, but they're absolutely bang on. There's nothing wrong with them at all. So it's ready to go. Well, got that bracket sorted out. But other than that bracket, it's ready to go back on the bike. But they're not going back on the bike yet, because I also have to do the steering head bearings. And it's easier with the tank off. I can move some of the handlebar stuff out of the way and just rest it on the frame without disconnecting loads of gear. So that'll have to be done first, which will be the next lot of videos. And then these will go back on. Now, the other thing that needs doing is, I'll turn it round because it's on this side, is I'm going to have to do some investigation into the static setting for the slides. I had a quick look in the manual, but I couldn't see it because I don't have any vacuum gauges. Therefore, everything's going to have to be set up manually. It's going to have to go on the bike. I'm either going to have to borrow some. I don't want to buy any really, but I may have to. And try and set it up. I'm hoping it'll be okay. I mean, everything's pretty much as it was, other than new seals and stuff. And everything's set to the same basics levels, idle screws, etc. So if I set them up, hopefully, fingers crossed, it should be close. Anyway, that's for a later day. So call back, please. Subscribe, blah, 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 all the things that YouTube people say. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.